How would you feel about school taking up an extra hour every day to teach basic adult stuff like washing clothes, basic cooking, paying taxes? My rural school did this in the zeros: home ec, sewing, taxes, cooking, woodworking, etc. Could even get into metalworking, accounting, quilting, pottery, etc. if you wanted to. My home ec class had groups of 3 students try to make one pot of spaghetti, and every single group's spaghetti was inedible in different ways, and it made me afraid to try cooking again. Home ec is where I learned to sew a cat face pillow, make a bechamel white sauce, change the oil in my car, and file my taxes. And speaking of taxes, why are my taxes going into some billionaire's pocket instead of paying teachers to teach kids these basic skills? My school did the same. I was a good student, but at that age you just don't realize the valuable information they were giving you. You kept the information long enough to pass the tests, and then you went and got alcohol poisoning in a field while your parents thought you were at a movie with Nicole and Beckett. We have this in Sweden. Sewing and woodworking are the 2 options of crafting class. You get to try both and then pick one to stick with. We have hempenskap, maybe it is called something different now. This is middle school junior high stuff, and I'm 30 this year, so been a while, directly translating to home knowledge, where, at least when I did it, mostly did cooking. But there was some classes and tests on washing clothes, cleaning and such things. Some home economy as well. There was nothing on taxes, a fake. But here I pay taxes by logging into our equivalent of the ERS website and press a button. At least 3 of those are actually school subjects. You can choose to do cooking or metal work or business studies at lots of schools. They are just electives most of the time because they were not used for university admission. I'd be opposed to the extra hour, but not the activities. School was already an 8-hour-a-day thing. Pushing it up to 9 hours means it actually becomes longer than a full-time job. And that's before you get to homework and shit like that. If anything, the school day should be shorter, or keep it 8 hours in the building. But leave 2 or 3 of those for students to work on homework with a teacher around when they need help, guidance, or just for them to socialize in a somewhat structured way. Expecting teens to maintain any level of engagement and discipline for 8 hours straight is psychotic. It is a system built by nerds and sadists. Well, really. It is 6 hours in Australia, and I kind of just assumed it was the same everywhere. I agree, it could be done as an elective. These are things that could and should be taught by parents, but they aren't things all parents know, and not all kids have parents who would take the time to teach them either way. It should be available for kids who want it, but not required, and certainly not adding an extra hour to the school day. Let's be real. It is already pushing overtime every single week. We just had to take our work home with us and spend an hour or more working on it every night. Hell, some kids push 50 hours every week. Where I'm from, USA, all public schools are roughly 8 a.m. 3 p.m. Some schools offer breakfast for early arrivals, and a lunch break is typically 45 minutes. My school had a class like that. Most of the classmates didn't pay attention and now complain 10 years later that they never learned about taxes and credit card interest. Also, some parents were super upset about the school overstepping their boundaries by teaching basic budgeting. I can't imagine that situation has gotten any better in the last 10 years. I'm not against the class being taught, but at the end of the day you have to realize that all that stuff is easily learned once you are an adult with just a minimum amount of research. If someone isn't taking the 15 minutes it takes to learn how to wash their clothes properly or watch a YouTube video for a basic recipe as an adult when they actually need to do those things to function, no way in hell as a teen would they pay attention to a class that tried to teach them. It is still a good idea to have the class, but it isn't some magical fix everyone seems to think it is. I am against the adding an extra hour of school though on top of regular school though. Yeah, we don't need a wild class to teach us how to do laundry. Basic operation of the machine takes like 2 minutes to learn. There's even picture instructions on machines. People love to parrot this idea. I promise you that for 90 of students it won't be any different from any other class. They just won't care. This is the real issue every time this comes up and why I'm against it. On top of that, this is the information age. You don't need to be a wizard to figure stuff out when it's literally all at your fingertips. Go ahead and Google "how do I wash my clothes" and you can undoubtedly find hours of YouTube videos demonstrating exactly that. People need to take the tiniest bit of initiative and not just expect it all to be spoon-fed. Exactly, we had budgeting and taxes included in our mandatory maths classes. 90 now complain about not learning any real-life skills. We also had mandatory cooking. And even though we learned a lot, there was much sexism going around to avoid working. 14-year-old boys suck and will use any excuse. Oh, I guess not everyone learnt anything there. This used to be called home ec and most schools had it. Then boomers did away with it because it cost too much. Now they make fun of young people for not knowing things they would have learned in home ecs. In my high school, home ec was for girls and all the guys took wood shop. I'd spent a few hours a weekend helping my dad build stuff since I was little, and I decided I'd rather hang out with girls for an hour than build a birdhouse or something. Best decision ever. We made cakes, learned how to negotiate rent, and sewed clothing. It wasn't exactly academically challenging, but it was a lot of fun. No regrets at all on that one. Home economics in most schools taught cooking and sewing, not actual economics, stuff like establishing a budget, understanding how stocks and dollar cost averaging investment works, or how crippling credit card debt is. If you learned any of that at all, it was usually a unit in math class. Source: Genscher, who learned how to make a pizza from scratch and sew a pillow in home ecs. Many schools still have home ec, however. For most students it's an elective, and many of them don't want to take it over something else. Boomers did away with it. Oh, crackpot. Schools have these already and the kids in them don't care. It is not immediately relevant to their lives, so they don't pay attention. Sorta like if I were to talk to you about the do's and don'ts of denture cream. You say, I'll figure it out later when I need to know it, and stop paying attention. I've taught in several schools that have tried to teach social skills, kindness, meditation, financial literacy, etc. In every case, the kids did not care. It was their least favorite part of the day because it felt like a waste of time. The point of education is to teach thinking, not doing. A well-educated student can teach themselves these things. A quick Google search can teach you how to file taxes, cook, etc. But you can't Google how to do algebra too and expect to understand what you read without some background in the subject matter. The point of education is to teach thinking, not doing. That's a fair point. My science classes definitely have helped with cooking, as they taught problem solving and analysis, which is very useful when you need to rescue a recipe or want to experiment. What we need is more college and community programs for adults that want to learn this stuff. Kids literally don't care. I had a lot of teachers in high school try to give us life advice and no one listened or took it seriously. Teenagers are all little shits. Yes. At school you learn how to learn. This is an example I always use. If you could research a report on the history of the periodic table for science, or study to pass a calculus exam in math, looking up how to file taxes on WikiHow should be a goddamn piece of cake. To be fair, it also depends on what year in high school this class would be taken. My high school tried to give us a lesson on retirement funds during freshman year. Way less people paid attention than would have if it was, say, it was lessons on how to build your credit and rent your own place given to high school seniors. That's just home ec. In his Blues 3 Nors Agami home ec's class was baking cookies and eating them in the next class. I can't remember anything else. 476. Reply, share, report, save, continue this thread. Japanese schools do this to a degree. The students are responsible for cleaning the classroom and serving lunch to their classmates. I think it would be a great idea if well explained and supported by the community. Otherwise, the school risks parents going bananas, think errands, and who knows what. In a lot of Japanese schools, students are required to take home ec classes where they learn how to sew, cook, etc. It's actually really fun making curry with your classmates. I am opposed to it. There's no reason parents can't teach these things to their kids while doing said tasks. School isn't responsible for every single thing. Also, with the internet, if a parent doesn't know changing a tire, for example, they can easily learn. Yeah, school can't teach literally everything. Most of what you need to learn outside of school can be done with skills you get in school. Laundry and basic cooking isn't that hard as long as you have the skills to complete high school. I think it should be optional because not everyone has a parental figure that will teach these things though. The thing is, that this might help break the cycle where kids don't have parents that care to teach them. And these often are parents that, if they don't know how to do thing, will not try to learn it in order to teach their kids. It could be helpful for kids with neglectful, otherwise abusive parents. I could certainly see this as a useful subject for like 1 or 2 years, an hour a week. But also today I learned that school lasts 8 hours in many places. Here it is 6 hours in most schools plus homework. Some parents don't do these tasks. Some parents get frustrated that the kid can't instantly perform at an adult level and refuse to teach it, or scream the entire time they were teaching it. And using the internet to learn things is no substitute for hands-on learning. I don't know if home ec should be required, but it should be an elective people can take. Some don't have parents or a function adult figure in their life. I'd implore you to go to a neighborhood served by a Title I school. It'll help shed some light on why that take, in its entirety, is dumb. I think that they already waste enough time, and it would be worse for kids whose parents already taught them that stuff. Washing clothes is really a 20-minute lesson, and cooking taxes have their own elective classes already. I learned this in home ec. Home ec really doesn't exist anymore in a lot of places. I would disagree. This is stuff that should be taught during school, not adding on to it. They need to take things out before adding anything. Likongbo, 1 hour like an elective would be nice. 42 reply, share, report, save, continue this thread. Washing clothes. So you put the clothes in some detergent, push a button, then dryer, then a hanger. They do it already. It is called life skills here. Edit. 8 hours. Your grandparents had home economics classes for the girls and shop trades classes for the boys. Every once in a while a member of the opposite sex would sign up for and take the wrong class. Too much humor. They don't teach home ec or have shop classes anymore. No, my high school does not have a home ec class and has not had one for years. It used to have a woodshop class up until a few years ago, but the old superintendent of the district was a hardcore penny pincher cost saver, so he got rid of woodshop and a bunch of other more expensive classes. Closest thing to home ec is a garden to kitchen class at the middle school, which I took for 2 semesters and was one of the most useful classes I had at the time. Some schools are getting rid of this because they were putting more emphasis on testable, quantifiable info. Things like shop, art, and music are considered frivolous and silly. I remember years ago even grade schools were starting to do away with recess. My middle school and high school had home ec, no shop at school, but there was a career center you could go to as part of your electives and do woodworking or welding. Many schools still have home ec, but it's an elective and most students don't want to take it over another class. We had neither at my high school 3 years ago. Those are the things that a competent parent should teach their child. Agreed. And not all of us have competent parents. True, but there are a lot of things parents don't know, especially when it comes to money. How to budget, how to take advantage of a 400 wonk, the difference between a Roth and traditional era, how to invest, etc. Then there are things that could really help a young student, like how to meal prep, how to shop for groceries to make multiple meals, how to vet a potential roommate. Kids spend 12 hours just learning how to take tests and are rarely prepared for the real world. Assuming parents know this stuff. This thinking contributes to the cycle of economic disadvantage being so hard to break out of across generations. A small investment, making sure all kids are introduced to the impact of credit card debt, and the power of starting early with even a tiny amount of retirement savings, can have a huge impact in adults who are financially secure as they approach retirement. The same could be said about sex ed. You can't rely on the parents to do this. You do realize having a competent parent is a privilege. Oh, and how do the parents know these things? School. I would say the parents should be doing that. Why even have the kid if you want the teachers to raise them? I would be pissed at the extra hour, but I would be up for it. It would be smarter to make it a mandatory elective though. Mandatory elective. Yee. You can call it life skills or something. I can't imagine it take more than an hour to teach someone to do laundry. Just read the instructions on the tab. Problem with kids is that if they don't find the subject interesting, they gonna zone out regardless. Don't forget civics. We need to start teaching civics again so people learn how bills and elections work and that there's nothing fucking mysterious about it. I'm a millennial. It was a required class to graduate at my school. I graduated in 2019 and they still require it. And I'm from the deep south as well. People are just dumb or forget over time. It's required at my school. We still teach it. They just stop too young for required courses. It's literally required. Civics. That seems already covered by history class. We went over like the US government system and how bills and elections and the balance of power works like at least 3 times in the 12 years of primary school, basics in elementary school, details in junior high, and the nitty-gritty details line by line in American history in high school, and how health insurance works. I learned more from a presentation in 45 minutes than I ever did in my entire school existence. That used to be part of social studies. I would have been bored out of my skull. When I moved out of my parents' house, my mom kept calling me asking if I needed to know how to do X, E or Z. Mom, do you know how to X, me? Been doing that since I was 5, Mom. Mom, what about me? Been doing that since I was 12. Mom, but what's me? Blink, blink. Mom, I'm the one who had to teach Dad how to do that. Remember, Mom. But your brother was calling me for weeks after he moved. My public school had classes that teach these things. I graduated high school a decade ago. I took home economics and learned how to cook. I took financial literacy to learn about taxes and budgeting and investing. Is Utah just way ahead of the other states, or is this a made-up issue? I've seen people that took these classes at my school post memes about not learning how to pay taxes and shit. I wonder if the real problem is that nobody remembers this stuff because they teach it to you when it isn't relevant to your life.
Like and subscribe for more Reddit content. Watch the next video at the top of your screen.